Hey there, Unsolved Mysteries fans. Thought I'd do another case video here. This case is the case of Cindy James, actually. It took place in Richmond, British Columbia, on June 8th, 1989. So basically, so she was 45. She had been drugged and strangled, and her hands and feet had been tied behind her back. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police believed that her death was either an accident or a suicide. In the 7 years before she died, Cindy reported nearly 100 incidents of harassment beginning 4 months after she left her husband. 5 were violent attacks, while others were whispering to silent phone calls. This got worse after she involved the police. At night she heard prowlers, her porch lights were smashed, and her phone lines were severed. According to her friend Agnes Woodcock, she had said bizarre notes began to appear at her doorstep. Someone was trying to scare her to death. She became reluctant and frightened to give details. Over time, the police began to doubt her stories. One night, Agnes dropped by Cindy's house for a visit and knocked on the door. There was no answer, so she assumed she was taking her bath. As she investigated, she came across her outside, crouched down with a nylon stocking tied tightly around her neck. She'd gone out to the garage to get a box, and someone grabbed her from behind. All she saw were white sneakers. Cindy moved to a new house, painted her car, and changed her last name. She also hired a private investigator, Ozzie Cabin. The police continued their investigation and questioned her several times. Ozzie later reported that she wouldn't tell them the entire story. She would be evasive, would withhold information, and simply would not act as a normal victim would act. Her mother, Tilly Hack, thinks the reasoning for her daughter's reluctance was that her attacker had threatened her sister and family by naming him. Her family would be killed. One night, Ozzie heard strange sounds coming over a two-way radio he had given Cindy and went straight into her house. He went around the house and found it locked. Looking through a window, he found her lying on the floor with a paring knife through her hand. She was taken to the hospital, where she later recalled being attacked and a needle going into her arm. Police never took fingerprints from a suspect, and there was no independent corroboration. Sorry about that. Cindy saw this person sometimes accompanied by 1 or 2 others, or sometimes she said there were two or three people. The police could never find a suspect. The threatening phone calls continued, but they were too short to trace. There were never ones when the police had a 24-hour surveillance on her house on end with up to 14 officers. But when surveillance was taken off her house, another incident would happen. As police became skeptical of the harassment, her parents believed her attacker was either staying away to make them suspicious of her. Eventually, she was found dazed and semi-conscious lying in a ditch 6 miles from her home. She was wearing a man's work boot and glove and suffering from hypothermia. Cuts and bruises covered her body. A black nylon stocking had been tied tightly around her neck. She had no memory of what happened. Agnes Woodcock and her husband Tom stayed with her, and one night heard noises, awoke to the basement in flames and the phone dead. Tom had left the residence to alert the neighbors. He saw a man at the curb and asked him to call the fire department. Instead, he simply ran down the street. The police suspected that Sydney had staged the incident. They found no dust or fingerprints disturbed on the outside windowsill. The fire was set inside the home. In order to set it, it was thought the perpetrator would have needed to climb through the specific window. It was also considered odd that Sydney still freely walked her dog during the attacks. Her doctor committed her to a local psychiatric ward, believing that she was becoming suicidal. 10 weeks later, she left the hospital. Her father, Otto Hack, said that she finally admitted to her family and friends that she knew more than she was saying, and would go after her perpetrator herself. On May 25, 1989, 6 years and 7 months after the first threatening phone call, Sydney disappeared. On the first day, her car was found in a neighborhood parking lot. Inside were groceries and a wrapped gift. There was blood on the driver's side door, and items from her wallet were under the car. 2 weeks later, her body was found at the abandoned house, and it looked like she had been brutally murdered. Her hands and feet were bound together behind her back. A black nylon stocking was tied tightly around her neck. Yet an autopsy revealed that she died from an overdose of morphine and other drugs. Police concluded she had committed suicide. Otto didn't believe she would have been able to stage the scene, but others believed it was possible. In Vancouver, the coroner had ruled her death was not a suicide, an accident, or a murder. They determined that she died of an unknown event. Sydney's parents never doubted that their daughter was murdered. Otto believed the police did not investigate the possibility of homicide or of somebody murdering her, instead zeroing in on trying to prove that she committed suicide. They believed someone in Vancouver was getting away with murder. Or is getting away with murder. So suspects. During the investigation, Cindy's ex-husband, Roy Makepeace, was a suspect, along with Pat McBride, her lover, who was a policeman. The man seen at her curb, running away during the fire, is also a suspect. That's pretty much all that Unsolved Mysteries has on that case. It doesn't look like there's been any other updates on it. This case is, it's a hard one to determine what happened, because, some things she could have set up herself, or somebody else could have did them. It's really hard to figure out. Maybe she was suffering from a mental illness or something, and and maybe she really was being attacked, but maybe also, she was setting up different incidents of harassment, maybe to try and get help, and maybe get committed somewhere, whether it be to a ward or something, again, where she could feel safe or be safe or whatever, because she was actually attacked. That's just my opinion, I don't know. It's quite possible though that might have been, but things like the fire, I don't think she set that. Maybe it is suspicious that she was walking her dog during the attacks. So I don't know. It's really a hard case to figure out whether some of them were staged and some of them weren't. It's hard to figure that out, but I definitely do think she was murdered, because the way that her hands and feet were tied, I think she might have been hog-tied. So I think that's the one where her hands and feet are bound behind the person's back. So yeah, I definitely don't think it was suicide for sure. I do believe she was murdered. I don't know. It seemed like the police didn't really investigate it, maybe as thorough as they probably should have. She could have been injected with morphine and possibly raped. That's definitely a possibility, and then killed that way. Or maybe the person had injected her with morphine and then raped her and then injected her with more to kill her. That's possible too. That's really that's my opinion on it. I don't think she committed suicide. I do believe she was murdered, just because of the way her body was found, and all of that. It's a hard case to cover, because it's one of those cold cases, that's under really mysterious circumstances, and it's hard to really come up with a conclusion or a theory that happened, or of how you think would happen. So yeah, that's pretty much just all my thoughts on this case. Subscribe if you like this video. Give a thumbs up or whatever, and comment if you want. I'd love to discuss the cases in the comments. I enjoy that. That's pretty fun. It's really cool to listen to other people's theories, and it's really it's really interesting as well to talk the cases in the comment section and discuss the theories and whatnot. So yeah, like if you guys like unsolved mysteries like I do, and you missed it on YouTube, and there is clips on YouTube, you really gotta look. But yeah, there is clips out there. You really have to look for them. But yeah, and we gotta keep the show alive and these cases alive, especially these unsolved ones that have been unsolved for years. It's best to bring peace to the family. Because they gotta suffer through this every year. Every year the anniversary comes around, and that's what I strive for. These cases need to be solved. So yeah, subscribe, like, and comment if you want, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video.